We haven't even said anything. We're laughing already. What is shaking, y'all? It is your boy, Marc Cordon, Golden Mike, episode 62, celebrating the launch of the Single Parent Summit that launches today. The founder of the Single Parent Summit, Tonia Adleta, is with us today. International speaker, Tonia Adleta. Recovering perfectionist, Tonia Adleta is here. World traveler, fueled by coffee, wine, and dark chocolate. I'm kind of a cheap date. I like the Hershey's Kisses chocolate. And multi-business entrepreneur Tonia Adleta is here with us today. But more importantly, for those of you who are watching live or the replay, if you've ever felt that you're living a life and you're playing one role here, and then you're playing another role here, and you're getting pulled in a million different directions, this is the day to pay attention, especially if you're a single parent and you're an entrepreneur. A lot of people might think that they're different, but I think Tonia would call those two great tastes that go great together. Just like Marc and Tonia, we're two great tastes that go great together. Jessica, it is good to see you. Giving Tonia the love eyes and the wild horse on some like deserted island. Fantastic. Another Jessie is here. Another Jessie is here. Yeah, we got two Jessie, two great tastes that taste great together, Jessica and Jessie. So we're going to talk about all of these good things. We're going to talk about your story, Tonia, today. But just in case those of you who haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordon, founder of the Make Money Coaching Program. But more importantly, I'm a positive psychology coach and dad. What does that mean? Well, it means I love my kid, but also it means two things. How happy are you today? Are you feeling happy today? And number two, are you living life at full capacity? Are you living life to its fullest? So Tonia, I got the same questions for you. It's a double-barreled question, but are you happy and living your life to its fullest today?
Oh, those are such good questions. And I should not be at all surprised that this is what you're going to ask me straight away, put me on the spot. Am I happy? I am. And there is a capacity for more happiness. This is something you and I have talked about before, and I'm sure it's one of the many rabbit trails we could go on. I think when you're in that space of always looking for how to further improve your life, how to leave a legacy, how to make a difference with what you're doing, the double-edged sword of that is that we often have this piece that is ever so slightly unfulfilled, because there's something more that we want to do in the world. So that's why I say, yes, I am happy, and there's room to even be a little happier. And then the second question, am I living at full capacity? Not yet. Not yet. I'm close. I think this is a year of transition for me. So a few things are like shifting around to make more space for the next iteration. And it's really, really exciting. So no, not yet.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about moving towards full capacity, because I think there's a lot of folks that are. I think one of the double-edged sword things that you're talking about is like, yes, I'm happy, and there's room to be happier, right? That's freaking fantastic. Or today I'm living at full capacity, and I know that the capacity is going to grow. And it's just a part of sort of our evolution. I might have been an entrepreneur 10 years ago, but I wasn't a single parent entrepreneur, right? So like those things grow, we change, they become dynamic. Put your hands up with me, Tonia. This is what you get for putting me on your show twice, and make a heart. For those of you who are watching the show and you're feeling it, you feel like you're living your life to full capacity and you're happy right now. Beat that heart. How do you beat your heart up there in Pennsylvania? Show us some hearts. Hit that heart button. We know that you're there. Hit that button, right? There's others. It's all about having some fun. We can be serious and having fun. Oh, Jessie, living life and happy to the fullest. I'm feeling you, Jessie.
The pondering emoticon here, like stroke our chins and let's get all
and Jessie hit that hard button. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people think that positive psychology is about like 24/7 shits and giggles, and that it's all about being happy all the time, and that like every day is Taco Tuesday, right? And today's Thursday, right? So it's still Taco Tuesday on Thursday. But really what positive psychology is about is the range of emotions that we feel, from happiness to loss to fear as entrepreneurs, to fear the next day when we scale up, to fear and anxiety as parents and second guessing ourselves. That is living the life. Those are the ups and downs and all arounds of life. If you are like waking up and you're like, yo, Cordon, yo, Adleta, I was happy yesterday, but I'm not feeling it today. Or I was working a corporate job and I was in full purpose, and now my full purpose is changing and I'm questioning it. That is part of your life's journey. Your heart beats just like Tonia and I. Give us a thumbs up just to let us know that you're living life. This is part of your story, y'all. This is part of your story. And then you're going to go and tell your story on the Golden Mic episode 575. So this is part of your story. Now here's the next thing. Let's see if Tonia will do this with us. You could be down in the dumps. You could have a friend that's down in the dumps, or you could be happy and know that you can go and live in more capacity tomorrow. If you know that tomorrow is going to be even better than today, if you're optimistic about your future, there is another button down there. That button is the wow face, and Tonia and I are going to show you what the wow face looks like. Let's do it, Tonia.
Do I get a countdown?
Well, 3, 2, 1. I love it. I love it.
The wow face. Come on now.
Yeah, now, Tonia, in getting to know you, one of the coolest things in getting to know Tonia is like, she is a person that I met in New York, and we instantly were like besties. We instantly talked about things that were important to us. No bull crapping, and we just went right for the jugular and talked about what was important to us. Tonia, you are amazing, and you are a person that I see being optimistic through the ups, downs, and all arounds of your life. Now, given all of that, what's your story, Mama?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, thank you, not only for those really warm and sweet words, but just for the opportunity to be here and have this conversation with you. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So nutshell version is that pretty much everything in my life is considered an adventure at this point. And it's because very little in my life has gone according to plan. And as the, control freak, I mentioned the idea of or actually you mentioned the idea of the recovering perfectionist. Let me talk about how much I love my plans. I like to know what's going to happen. I like to have a backup plan for the backup plan. And when it comes down to it, I think one of the biggest lessons for me over the last 10 years, especially, has been this idea of being fully present, being fully self-aware, which of course, is a bit of an oxymoron, because how can we ever be fully self-aware? But it's that idea of being able to be here now, be in this space, learn all that there is to learn. Because when things don't go according to plan, that's because there's something there for us. And, it's this idea that life is happening for us as opposed to us. It's all in that perspective. It's all in how we view things and what we can learn and experience in that moment. So that's kind of that's the nutshell version. If you let me get away with that, or we could go deeper.
Nope, not letting you get away with that. I thought that was brilliant, and I'm gonna cut that in post to give you some little quotes. This is happening for us, not to us. I absolutely love it. Let's go back to a younger Tonia. Not that you're old or anything, but let's go back to a younger Tonia. You're talking about being a planner, right? So what were your plans when you were younger? Did you have your life all laid out when you were like?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I had the 10-year plan, I had the 15-year plan, and this was, as a kid in college. I actually started my first event planning company when I was a junior in college. And so that was going to be a big part of my thing. Hospitality was always something that was really important to me. And I had this idea totally mapped out, the white picket fence, the happily ever after, the 2 kids, the dog, the successful business, all of these things. And funny, a lot of that is the same now, but none of it is the way I expected it. And there is one important element that's not there in the list. I am now the twice divorced wedding planner instead of the, happily married thing, which is kind of a running joke. But even in that, it's the idea of, who am I really? that is one little title, it's one little catchphrase that gets a good chuckle out of people, and it shows the irony. So many times people have this assumption that if you have gone through a divorce, either you are evil or your former partner is evil, like one extreme or the other, right? And not only, is that not the case, but here I am saying, oh no, it happened twice. So I still have this eternal optimism. I believe in love. I believe in marriage. Otherwise, I wouldn't still have a career in the wedding planning business because it's hard. Oh my God. The first wedding after I separated from my kid's dad, I was an absolute disaster. Like, had to sneak out of the back of the church during the vows, bawl my ever-loving eyes out in the foyer of the church, come back in, put myself all together, and then go and run the reception. It's what we have to do. And it's such a beautiful couple. Like, I remember exactly who they are. I remember everything about their wedding. And I just didn't want for my experience to negatively impact them in any way. So.
Wait, hold on. I think I missed it. What were you bawling your eyes out over?
Well, it was just the idea of like, here I am in the middle of my divorce, and
Gotcha. Yep.
I'm not only part of their wedding, but I'm kind of have to make it all happen.
Gotcha. You know what this totally reminds me of? It reminds me of when I worked in an office in the college that I was working for that distributed condoms. And I was the single dad, and I was like, I am so freaking out of right now because, like,
that's awesome.
Like, I'm like, hey kids, you understand the repercussions of like doing what you do when you drink and you do your stuff, and it was like sort of like this sort of consciousness for the kids, right? And then my Facebook is like me and my kid, like single dad, and
that's awesome.
There were interesting days where I was like, this is so out of what it is that I do. Now let me ask you this. You talked a lot about this idea that people kind of put a stigma on folks who go through divorces. Like, was that something that took you a while to get out of? Because you're saying that you're still optimistic, but did you feel that stigma?
Oh yeah, definitely. We'd like to say, I think it's better now than it has been. I mean, we're going back 10 years when the kid's dad and I had separated. So I would like to think that society has changed in some ways, at least for the better, over the last 10 years. And I do feel like society is a bit more accepting of, kind of it is just a piece of our fabric now in society. And that was a big reason why the Single Parent Summit came to exist, is because I would have given anything to have had somebody to turn to 10 years ago and be like, oh, dear God, what have I gotten myself into? And How do I work through the guilt? Because it was my choice to end the marriage. How do I get my kids through their processing? And now their dad is remarried. So what does that mean? And again, me being the control freak, here's a classic example. I thought that I was being helpful. I really, truly, hand to God, thought that I was being helpful. And now I can go back and look, and here's where that self-awareness thing comes in. I'm like, oh my word. I was totally trying to control the outcome of the situation, because when their dad had told me that he was getting remarried, all I kept thinking about is, how are the kids going to handle this? Like, there's so much transition for them going on. They're so young, what's going on? And I remember writing this email that if we printed it out, it's probably like 17 pages long or something obnoxious. And it was just this idea of, well, Disney doesn't really paint a very nice picture of stepmothers. Have you thought about trying to find any books or resources or, positive narratives about step parents and how to, start this off on the right foot, as if they couldn't figure that out on their own, or, you know what I mean? Like, allow that relationship to develop and to blossom. Right. Here I am going, you have to fix this. Disney has really screwed us up. Like, you have to fix this before anything happens. I mean, come on. Like, so yeah, there's just one example.
Yeah. I'm also kind of curious, because we're both single parents, but also at the same time, the elephant in the room is, you're a woman, I'm a man. Like, what you're talking about society. Like, how do you think society has changed when it comes to gender roles, or is it harder for one or another?
I love this question because I get really excited about this, especially when it comes to active, engaged parenting. And again, something that you'll see, and I was going to say, I'm sorry for tooting my own horn. I'm not going to apologize. I'm really freaking proud of this. If you look at the speakers that we have that are chosen for the Single Parent Summit, you are going to see almost a 50-50 split of men and women. You're going to see different races. You're going to see different ethnic backgrounds. You're going to see different spiritual beliefs. You're going to see different sexual orientations. You're going to see different family structures. Because I think it is so incredibly important for people to be able to say, that person looks, smells, thinks, feels like me. You know what I mean? Like, to have that idea that there's someone in this group that you can identify with. I think that's so important because, again, that's what I was looking for 10 years ago of like, well, what do I do? Where do I even start? And there were some people that I knew I didn't want to listen to because their world looked nothing like mine. You know, to be able to go for parenting advice to the nuclear family that has the dad that's making six figures and the mom that's the stay-at-home PTA mom.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but whatever you have to say, it's going to have to go through 7 filters for me to know if I can even apply this to my own life. So, you know, that was a big piece for me. So to go back to your original question, I do feel like there is this idea that more of the ownership falls to the woman's shoulders when it comes to not only raising the kids, but also running the household. What I love to see in this conversation is that the single dads are taking up space in this conversation. And it's this idea of, you know, hey, we've got our own households to run. We've got to figure out how to manage the grocery shopping and the meal planning and getting laundry done before someone needs their very special purple t-shirt or, you know, whatever the case might be. Like, you know, there's a certain ownership in that space that you guys are finally getting the credit for doing the things that you're doing and for being an active parent and engaged in your kids' lives and just showing up. And I think that's huge. So I get super excited. Sorry, obviously. About that.
You apologized again. You're not supposed to apologize.
I'm working on that.
Yeah, you know what? And I one of the big things was when, you know, when it became evidently clear that I was going to be it was going to be a separate thing for Zach's mom and I, was this idea that, okay, here's the social perception that she's going to be carrying the load and I'm a complete deadbeat. Wow. No matter what I do, I'm a complete deadbeat. And you know what? I did realize that I was like overcompensating and stuff. And then it just came to the point where I was like, just show up for Zach. It doesn't matter anything else. Right. So I'm not saying that I'm not doing everything correctly, but I did feel some social stigma as well in terms of like, here we are, 2 Catholic people, you know, not getting married for the kid and
right.
Sort of, you know, also traditional Filipino family, like, not going forward that way. It was very different and stressful at times. So let's talk about 10 years ago before we go into the summit. How did you find yourself searching? Because you said that you did wish that you had some of those support systems like the single or the single parent summit offers up. So what was it that you were doing, or were you just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping it'd stick?
Oh, there was a lot of spaghetti.
Oh my God, the perfectionist planner throwing the spaghetti at the wall. I mean, you talk about a change in value system.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and I think kind of even to what your point as far as the idea that you're not perfect in this, neither am I. And, you know, I have the great honor of bringing other people together to each speak from their experience. None of us are perfect. And the idea is the better that we can be at being who we are, the better parent we can be. And I think at that point, that's really where the magic happens, because I'm not asking anybody to be anything other than what they really are. But in order to be who you truly are at the core, you have to have a level of self-awareness that takes some time to develop. And it takes a lot of difficult conversations with yourself. You mentioned the idea of searching. It takes a lot of searching. And There's some great books, there's journaling, there's meditation, there's travel. Solo travel, I think, is one of the most important things that any human being can do for themselves at some point in time in their lives, because there's something really powerful about being able to experience a new culture, a new place, navigating a new area in a different language, and doing it on your own in such a way that you are, you know, really putting your money where your mouth is and saying, I trust that I am safe. I trust that life is happening for me. I trust that, fill in the blank. Although having said that, I will fully own my first trip to Europe by myself. It was just shortly after the divorce from my kid's dad. And I was so excited. I was so excited. Like the best compliment I've ever received in my life, aside from my children, was being mistaken for a French woman when I was in Paris and being mistaken for an Italian when I was in Italy. And that just like made my heart soar. Like my accents were okay, like passable. I mean, come on. I even gave directions to another set of Americans in French, and I was right. Like those types of things. I mean, clearly this is 10 years ago, and I'm like still getting super jazzed about it. So don't underestimate just taking a road trip by yourself and being willing to experience those things yourself. My admission, though, is that I specifically did not go to Venice on that trip, and I've had a great opportunity to be back to Italy a couple of times since. I have not gone to Venice yet. And I think it's because I think I could go now. I think I could do it now. But I knew that if I tried to go 10 years ago, I would have fallen into a complete mess, because there's just this idea of the romance and, sharing that experience with someone else. I wasn't in the place that I could have done that on my own 10 years ago. Now I could. So that's a side.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but I am always mistaken for a French woman in Italy and an Italian woman in France. So again, I hate when we fight, Tonia, but
we seem to be doing this an awful lot lately.
Just I hate to burst your bubble, yeah. But I do love your idea of pilgrimage and self-exploration when it comes to both internal world, like you were talking about how you're changing internally, but also putting yourself out there in external places, places where sort of the cultural norms are very different, and sort of how that shapes you when you bring that back to your parenting style, your entrepreneurship, changing with the times, all that good stuff. We got Krista. I don't know if you can see the screen, but it's covering our face here. In the late 70s and the early 80s, my parents divorced, but myself and my sister lived with dad. He was our Mr. Mom, a movie reference. Bonus points if you know who played Mr. Mom. And I feel he did an amazing job even back when it was rare that dads got full custody and that he raised 2 daughters. Throw in, he was a minister. He was really my hero. This was before he was before his time. That's pretty awesome that you shared that, Krista. Shout out to your Mr. Mom Pops, Mr. Mom Pops, who raised you and your sister with love.
I can see the guy's face, and I can't think of his name. Do you know? You're the one that threw the challenge out.
Yes, I absolutely know, and I'm not going to reveal it unless somebody throws it in. Unless somebody throws it in the comment box. I know some people are watching, so there's going to be a.
Oh, that's going to bother me. Somebody please help me out, because that is really going to bother me.
I'll give you one lifeline.
It's the Beetlejuice guy, right?
It's the Beetlejuice guy. Yes. It was. He's one of the Batmen. He played one of the Batmen. Okay, I can see we can't proceed unless I tell you. Do you want to know?
I was gonna say Bruce Wayne doesn't really help. Yeah.
Yes, Gary Fleming. Gary Fleming just unlocked the key. We can continue. Thanks to Gary Fleming.
Oh my gosh, Gary!
Thanks to Gary Fleming. If you type in Marc in the singleparentsummit.com, you will get some nice goodies. Gary Fleming unlocked what Krista started. Tonia was of no help whatsoever, except the Beetlejuice reference.
Well, I knew his face. I just didn't have
I knew his face. Batmen don't help. Oh my goodness.
No, sorry. That was bad. That was bad. Okay, so you would ask the question about what was I doing in my searching? Like how is that actually happening? See, I remembered. I may have gone on like 17 different, thank you, Gary. I may have gone on 17 different rabbit trails in the meantime, but I did remember. So actually, I think probably one of the first things, which is going to sound really kind of crazy, there is a book called Project Everlasting. Now, keep in mind, I'm a wedding planner at the time, and there are 2 single guys, 2 bachelors, that got together to write this book. And they interviewed all of these couples that had been married for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And it was about the idea of, what kept their relationship together. And I remember being so inspired by that. Now, again, we've already said, I am clearly the romantic. Like, I have a big, huge soft spot in my heart for all of this. So as I'm reading this book, I start to get really curious about these two guys. Like, what is their story? And so somehow I get involved on, their website or whatever. And there is a conference call, a webinar that talks about a mastermind. And I was like, okay, well, I remember my parents talking about masterminds when my dad was a platform speaker and they were, in all of these training events and such. But what would that mean for me right now in this application? Now, to set the frame, I am living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my kids, and the kids are with me for a week and then they're with their dad for a week. It's 1 bedroom. There are two girls and 1 boy. So the boy gets the room, the girls get the living room. And Anna is sleeping on the day bed, when she's home with me, and I have a little air mattress. And then, of course, when the kids are at their dad, I get the day bed back again. Mm-hmm. So this is my scenario. And I decide to try and find a meetup group, find a mastermind that I can start to get plugged in locally. And here's the interesting thing that I found from my own experience. The people that I tend to connect with the easiest and on a deeper level have almost never been nearby me. So I did try the meetup. I went to the mastermind. It was kind of like, okay, well, I can see maybe. But there was something that was very surface level. And like you said, Mark, like I am one, if you get to know me, yep. If we get a chance to meet in person, I want to go deep as quickly as possible. I think part of that came from, I moved 16 times before I graduated high school. So I just moved all the time. So I kind of had this ticking time clock in the back of my head of going, I don't know how much time I have with you. So if we're going to be friends, then we have to be friends right now. That hasn't always translated very well for my adult life. But it does allow me to get deeper faster in conversation and connection. So, again, double-edged sword. So fast forward, the local meetup thing wasn't working out so well, partly because people weren't willing to really go deep. They weren't willing to engage and to have a deeper conversation. It was all very surface level. I mean, it might as well have been, what's the weather like, as entrepreneurs. So that started me off on this process. And really, it really started just a little bit before that. And you may have heard the story, Mark. It started on a bleach stain hunter green carpet of the bathroom of the mobile home that I bought just after divorcing from my kid's dad. And as I was lying there on the bathroom floor, I was floating in and out of consciousness because my body was producing so much adrenaline that my heart couldn't process it. So to, take it even a step further back from this idea of the 1-bedroom apartment, this was even before that. And it was the idea that something has to change. Self-care, first of all, self-care was no longer a luxury that I didn't have the time or money for. It was an absolute necessity for me to figure out how to take better care of myself. But then that's a 2-pronged thing. The second piece was that there was an invitation I needed to answer. I needed to become familiar with myself again. I lost so much of myself during the course of my first marriage and the divorce, and just grieving what wasn't anymore and grieving the loss of those dreams. And I remember exactly the moment where the full weight of everything hit me and I fell to my knees, again, another bathroom, and, sobbed. And just this idea of everything that I ever wanted for myself in that 10 and 15 year plan that I wrote can no longer happen because of the choice that I've made. And yet I do feel in my bones that I've made the right choice. And this still sucks. Like, this still hurts to the very core. You can have space for both of those things, and you can have space to grow beyond that. So that's really, it's little bits and pieces over time that start to call to you to go deeper and to really understand who you are, why you're the way that you are, what it is that really is in you that wants to come out into the world and to make a difference. And so that's what my journey has been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think the word really that was really poetic is the word grieving, right? Because it sounded like you were burying your old self, like, oh, it's not the way I thought it would go,
Yeah.
but this is the way that it is going. And I'm going to go this way, and it hurts, but I choose this pain. I could totally avoid it, but I choose this pain. So what choices did you make when you saw self-care as a necessity now? Because it sounded like you were serving a whole lot of people.
It was, and I was.
Yeah.
The thing is, I was really. By the way, what's our cussing?
Whatever the fuck you want to say.
All right, awesome.
How about that?
I was busting my ass to live a life that didn't. It wasn't even really what I wanted. My corporate job at the time didn't provide health insurance, so I was working 20 hours a week at Starbucks for not only the health insurance, but also, let's be honest, the free coffee, because I desperately needed it. And then, you know, I'm working on average 50, 60, sometimes 70 hours a week at the corporate gig. And then, of course, racing to try and get the kids from the after school program. This was my day-to-day existence. So surprise, surprise, when, you know, we're having cereal for dinner because that's all we have at the moment, or that's all I have time or mental energy to be able to create. You know, all of these different things. And I think what's so interesting, unless you've been through a divorce, which not that I would wish on my worst enemy, by the way, you really don't have an understanding of the kind of starkness, the difference between your before and your after. And I found that the quickest thing was to find your new normal as quickly as you possibly could and recognize that that can continue to change. We are not beholden to continuing any one thing for forever. Whenever we make, you know, I should say, whenever we get new information, we can make a new decision with that. So for me, I think one of the first things was really getting clear about my advisory board.
Yeah.
I was in an interesting situation. I had taken a part-time job in insurance. And if you've heard me on this diatribe before, I have this love-hate relationship with insurance. Like, I get the idea, I get the concept, sure. However, I take serious issue with the idea that I think something bad is going to happen to me. So I'm going to pay you a lot of money that in case it does, you will give me that money back again to make sure everything is good. And you think that either nothing bad is going to happen to me or whatever bad thing happens doesn't really matter so much because I've given you enough money that you can give me money back and we're all good and you've made a profit. That is the philosophy of insurance. It drives me bonkers, as you can tell. So here I am, you know, I'm so grateful to be in this part-time situation because it's like almost full-time, but it gives me flexibility to be the ones to put the kids, drop them off at school, and then meet the bus when they get home on the weeks that they're with me. And then the weeks that they're with their dad, I'm just working, you know, a little bit extra. That set up a pattern for me, by the way, to work myself to the bone while the kids were at their dad's. So that I could have that free time on the other side. So it took me a little while to learn that, you know, on the self-care idea and to bring a little bit more balance back. I mean, I got to the point where it's like I wasn't even going to the grocery store on the weeks the kids were with me, for one, because he likes going to the grocery store with young children. But on the flip side of that, it's precious time that I didn't want to spend going through the aisles of the grocery store when we could be doing something else together.
Sure.
So back to your original question, what did self-care actually look like? Who I was listening to. That was the first thing I really needed to pay attention to. The environment that I mentioned as far as being in this part-time job, I was really grateful. And at the same time, the conversations around the office weren't necessarily always about becoming the best version of ourselves, or I should say rarely, but just this idea of, you know, who are we meant to serve? What's the bigger picture? There was a piece of me that was always yearning for something deeper. And I think something that's really important to recognize when you're in this level of chaos and trying to get your footing as quickly as you can is that there is a phase of being in survival mode. And that's okay. As a matter of fact, that is necessary. Sometimes self-care looks like breathing. Like literally just taking a breath, feeling your feet underneath you and taking a breath, because that's all that you've got in you in that moment. And that's okay.
Okay. Now, did you feel like you were in survival mode for, like, was there ever a point where you were like, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I'm just stuck in survival mode.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So what was it that sort of got you out of that circle? Was it this advisory board?
That was part of it.
Okay.
Somehow along the way, who I was spending time with shifted to the point where now I look around at my inner circle.
Yep.
And I have the most amazing people in my
Yep.
world who are all about doing something bigger than themselves and making a difference beyond, you know, the day-to-day type of a thing. It's not about what they can get, it's about what they can give. And these are the people, I mean, you see so many of them even as speakers on the Single Parent Summit. The reason why I could pull this event off is because I have these personal relationships with people. And I've been event planning for 20 years, so that helps too. But I mean, really, it was a shift, but it happened slowly over time. And it was the more that I was willing to invest in myself and becoming, again, I keep saying it, the best version of myself. I spent more money on one thing than I think just about anything except for my house. And it was in my own training for a very specific program a year and a half ago. That one thing has changed the trajectory of my life. And I still have that thing of like, I spent how much? But there's a reason why. It set me up for where I need to go next. Does that make sense?
It more than makes sense. I think a couple years ago, there were things that if you told me that I was investing in when it came to self-development, I would have said, I've been brainwashed into shams. And then it's sort of, I'm sort of realizing there is a certain pricelessness of transformation. And I am not the same Marc that I was before that transformation. I'm more of the Marc that I've always dreamed of being. I'm not, again, not perfect, but I'm, you know, when you're seeing yourself in survival mode, when you're seeing, you know, for me, the only way that I could get through something is by becoming, you know, this PhD and working up this ladder and fitting a status quo. It was priceless to change, to change the people I was connected with, to change the feedback loops that I was saying in my head, to make macro and micro changes when it came to self-care. And I'm still going through it. So it makes lots of sense. We're not fighting anymore. I'm totally with you, sister, on that one.
Oh, I see how it is now.
Yeah, okay, I'm not fighting with you
anymore. Let's even take that a step deeper, because I feel like there's this idea that we're going to arrive. You know, when you had first asked me what was the moment that I got out of survival mode? Yeah. My first reaction was, I don't know if I've really cleared that yet. And I mean, I have in so many ways. And at the same time, because I'm consistently putting myself in a place to expand and to grow and to get deeper with myself so that my roots are deeper, my wings can be wider, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Because I'm constantly doing that, there is still always this element of survival mode, of, you know, just kind of that piece of, it's that, again, that invitation to go deeper internally. It's the, who am I? What am I here for? And those things, you know, sometimes we can get crystal clear and that one thing will guide us all the way through. And sometimes it's iteration after iteration. You know, I thought that what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was to have a really great wedding and event planning brand. And I've had the beautiful pleasure of planning events all over the country and even internationally. And, you know, it's been fantastic. And I'm retiring soon. Yeah. So, you know, because there's something else. There's something else that's bigger.
Yeah, and that does make sense now. If y'all go watch the replay of this, or after you've shared this video and they've watched the replay, you can watch back to when Tonia goes and says, I'm happy, but also at the same time, there's another level of that. I'm operating at capacity and still getting there. It seems like they cancel each other out, but that's the idea that we've arrived. That's the, you know, if you assume that I've arrived, then you've got nowhere to go. Right. And to me, that's like developmental death, you know, like,
well, yeah, and really, where's the fun in that? Like, there's no more adventure at that point.
There is no more adventure. And that's how you kicked off this whole thing, that you've been on an adventure as a recovering perfectionist. So let's talk more about thriving and using, you know, a lot of people will go and say, okay, there is an aha moment and now I can make these huge changes in my life, right? You're a single parent. You know, you did have some aha moments. There's some things that I also call no shit moments
Oh yeah.
I think you call them micro changes because you're more professional. Here we are fighting again.
I was just going to say, that was you this time.
Yeah.
Not that we're who causes the problems there, but I'm just going to say.
We really are siblings. I love it. But like, what are these micro changes that, like, how are these effective as we move towards thriving within our multiple roles?
I would even argue that the micro changes are more effective than the macro changes. Because really, when you think about the idea of when we set out in this goal of personal development or self-development, or however it is that we want to phrase it, so often it can be this big, huge thing that becomes difficult to maintain. And we think that it has to be one of those big moments where the lightning bolt comes through the sky and, the sea is parted and all that kind of stuff. In reality, what's far more sustainable is that we take bite-sized little things that we can do. So for example, I mentioned the idea of the advisory board. One of the first things I would really encourage people is to take a look around and see who you're listening to. And that could be everything from the podcast that you're listening to. We talked about the idea of this before on a different conversation, the music that we listen to. There is a specific song list or a playlist that I've got one for when I need the creative energy, kind of in a soft, subtle thing. And I've got one where I need to kick a little ass and get shit done. But I've specifically chosen those songs based on the lyrics. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Even though all I listen to is Hall & Oates, like literally that's all I listen to. They're my like perma music, but like I do understand the power of words. I think we might have talked about this either in person or someplace else, but words create worlds for you.
Absolutely.
And so those little, like, it does make sense, even down to the music that you're listening to.
Yeah. Well, and think about again, one of the things that I found so difficult in that part-time insurance gig was that there was something in me that recognized that, this was only a short-time thing. Like I needed to grow beyond that particular moment. And there were a couple of other people in the scenario who had different things going on, and their way of handling it was to really complain a lot and to get really negative about the situation. So here I am, and if you guys know the Holocaust Manifesto, I'll see if I got that right. I'll drop a link for you guys. And it's just this beautifully designed manifesto of, this is your one life. What are you doing with it? It's all these different little sound bites, but it's, like I said, it's beautifully designed. So this was the screensaver on my computer because it's my way of being able to keep my eyes on the prize and know. I even changed like the opening page for my bank. You know how they have like the 2-form factor or whatever the tech thing is they do. There was something about world travel that I actually made as my opening keynote thing so that I could log in, and every time I had to check my bank account, I was doing it in the way of that's where I'm headed. And there was just, so it's just these tiny little things to keep me on track. Do I really want to go get Starbucks, or do I want to save that money because I'm buying a house? Different things like that, little ways that you can kind of hack the system, if you will, to create the micro changes that eventually, when they culminate together, you are so much further along than if you had all of a sudden had that one thing happen.
Yeah, I so want to play guess your password right now because my take is that your password is probably something really hopeful that's going to manifest in the future, and you get to type it multiple times a day. Everybody, what do you think Tonia's password is? But also, what are for other folks? What have you seen as these ideas of micro change? Like, what have you seen as other examples of micro changes? Because you're right. Like, whether it came to parenting, or whether it came to, for example, this is my business book, whether it came to entrepreneurship, it would be 3 tiny things I want to change, like Kaizen, like 3 to 1% change a day. Like, what have you seen when it came to the practice, of examples for you or other people that you've worked with?
This is going to sound so simplistic. Drinking more water.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an easy thing, and the vast majority of us are dehydrated on the average. Yeah. We already talked about the fact that I'm a coffee addict, which is also dehydrating. So I actually, I justified is pretty much what I did. If I'm going to have coffee, I also have to have an ice water that is twice the size. So at least I'm net was kind of, like in my logic that I could make that work. But really, when I finally did get serious about my health and starting to understand what was going on in my body, and especially with all the extra stress hormones and all the rest of it, I was nowhere near at the hydration levels that I should be. And that has been the same for so many of other people that I've worked with when I, was in the coaching role as well. So drinking enough water sounds so simplistic, and yet it makes a huge difference in how our physical bodies can perform. And it also, of course, then is going to impact our emotional levels and even our mental levels. So really simple thing, but it makes a really wide impact across the board.
I absolutely love that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No.
I absolutely love that example. And I love the idea that you say micro changes, because micro changes mean there are things that you can add, or there are things that you can subtract out of your life. One of the biggest things that I was just having a conversation with somebody with was think about people in your life that are draining. Like, there are people that you have conversations with and you feel better every time, almost every time, when you have the conversation with them. And then, like, you look forward, you can't wait to hear from them. And then there are people you're like, oh, should I answer this one? Should I answer this one, right? And then it's just, you don't have to necessarily fully commit to those kind of, really, you can just slowly not put 100% into those things. And that's cool. That's part of self-care, and that's part of micro changes. And then next thing you know, there's much more room for other people.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that is like the number one thing, coming back to this idea of advisory board, because who we listen to isn't just like who we put up on a pedestal. It's who we listen to at all ever. Are they around the kitchen table? Are they around the water cooler at the office? Like, wherever the people are, whoever we're listening to is impacting who we are becoming.
Absolutely.
I think so or not.
And I gotta give props to MC Gary Fleming. In order to be great, you gotta hydrate. Love it. Ramses, Double R. It's good to see you again with the thumbs up. Gary coming back again. I think this is when you went off on your. Like, insurance thing. I think everybody was getting all picked up there. Krista, good to see you. You guys are hilarious. That's awesome. So let's go and talk about the Single Parent Summit. Like you said, you are now at this point in your life, Tonia, where you can do essentially anything you want. You can continue with a very successful planning company, event planning. You could move on to the speaker, to continuing the international speaking place, but you're choosing right now to put together this summit. What's going on with that? Why now?
Okay, so first I've got to tell you the little moment I had just receiving your words. I think that there is this part of me that feels like there are certain things that I have to do in order to get to that next version of myself. Mm-hmm. So just hearing you say, you can do pretty much whatever you want right now, and this is what you're choosing to do, you gave me such a gift in that moment. So thank you for that. Because I think that so many times we get caught up, still, how many years are we both into this whole idea of our personal development, our self-development, our building our businesses, and I still get caught up in thinking that this has to be a certain way, or whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. So why am I doing this? I asked myself that question at 2:00 in the morning last night when I was running into tech issues with the launch of the Single Parent Summit today. And the answer at 2:00 in the morning was a little different than the one I can give you right now. The one last night was, forget this and I'm going to bed.
Oh yeah, you played the Eminem.
yeah, that's where that playlist would have come out, that's for sure. I think really there's a piece of me clearly that wants to give back and shave off any of the time or pain or frustration that I went through over the past 10 years. If there's a way that I can shorten that window for somebody else, then all the more power to them. I'm more than happy to do that. Selfishly, there's a piece in that fills me, because one of the things that's been really big for me ever since I was a kid was this idea of a legacy. Mm-hmm. And I fully believe that you are creating a legacy whether you're intentional about it or not. And doing the Single Parent Summit is something I'm intentional about. I want it to be a part of my legacy. I want it to be something that makes a difference in other families' worlds, because what I get really, really excited about, just like I can get so excited in the negative about insurance, I can get really excited in the positive about this. The Single Parent Summit looks like it's all about helping the parents. And we take a really wide lens on single parents. So it's if you have chosen to start a family without being partnered, if you've gone through divorce, if you've lost your partner to death. We also look at our military families while they're out on deployment. We look at if they've been incarcerated or in rehab or just emotionally unavailable, and it just feels like being a single parent.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty wide lens. All of that to say, it looks like it's all about the parent level. In reality, it's about helping the parents to connect with themselves in a way that they model that for their kids. Because if we can get a hold of the kids when they still have all the magic in them and they don't give up who they really are to conform to what society expects of them, or, to get the good grades because that's the only way to get approval. If we can get them that space, we are talking about impacting an entire generation. That's what really this is all about.
That is of epic proportions, right?
I don't dream small.
No, you don't play small. And I think also one of the things is that when you start connecting your purpose to something epic, that's legacy right there. You're shifting things on a seismic level. And I challenge everybody who's watching to think about what your service is on an epic level. Teresa's got it. Tonia, you're a rock star. Loving SPS. The feeling is mutual. I'm loving SPS as well, and I think Tonia is a rock star. So you've been putting this thing together for some time now. What are your kids think about it?
Oh my gosh, they're hysterical. Because last year was our first debut year. And I had this crazy idea. So I tend to think in pictures, again, kind of career hazard, I guess. And I had this idea of we should do a photo shoot that is like a color bomb photo shoot. So we all have, white clothes for the three of us. And one of my dear, dear friends is an amazing photographer. And we had a full out color war, like the powdered colors for the color run type of a thing. Yeah. And of course they were all on brand. They had to be the right colors for the photo shoot. Come on, again. This is still me we're talking about. So just this idea of like the whole, the colorful chaos of being a single parent, and especially being a single parent entrepreneur, that was how the branding came up last year. We've changed branding completely this year. We're still the Single Parent Summit, but now it's much more about a collaborative, let's all get to the mountaintop thing. Yeah. So anyway, to your original question about what my kids think, I think last year it was just kind of like, oh, mom's got this crazy idea. Let's see where this goes. And this year, it's really fascinating. So my son is now 16, going to be 17 in the fall, and he is now my podcast producer. So in the midst of doing all of the production for the actual summit event, we've also been getting ready to drop our Single Parent Summit podcast. So he is literally right now, as you and I are chatting, he is working on building in the outro for what we have, coming up. So it's crazy to me. So it's like super, super fun to be able to get them involved in a way that is so beyond, I think, what any of us would have expected at the start. And it's also really fun because even the kid's stepmom, she sent me just the sweetest text the other day, and she's like, okay, how can I help? What can I do? And she's been sharing and promoting on, her social media as well, and just talking about what we've been able to create as a blended family. So it's not just me, and that's just in my family. Yeah. I think of, the different people that we have on as admins and my project manager and the community manager, like they're just amazing, amazing people that have all come to be a part of this. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love it. Now, your son as podcast manager, does he ever hear anything and is like, yo, mom, I think you should talk about this, like, or you don't show them this side of yourself, like?
Oh, no. So
are you
the way that he got to be podcast producer is because he was also the editor of a video course that I've just finished that will hopefully be releasing soon as well. Funny, it kind of got put on ice while the summit took over my entire world. And that is weddingplanningdiy.com. So the idea is for, any couples who are planning their wedding and they weren't planning on ever hiring a planner, but they need to know what the hell they're doing. Like, that's what this is for. So we filmed with a professional film crew that came in, and it was freezing cold. And I bought an old fixer-upper house, which is a story for another time. We'll have to come back to that conversation because it's crazy. Baby raccoon fall from the hole in my kitchen ceiling, and it's just been lots of fun. And like I said, the adventure continues. So really cold, filming in my living room. We've got the backdrop, we've got the lights. I can't have the heater on because it's too loud for the audio. So I have this beautiful, black and red silk robe. And of course, conversations start along the idea of me being on camera in this really gorgeous robe. And all I kept thinking was like, you guys, my son has to edit this. Like, we've got to change this conversation right now. So, he had a big chuckle about it afterwards, and like he turned 4 shades of red. But still at the same time, I was just like, well, sorry.
The whole thing is pixelated out.
So bad. But yeah, I don't think that's, it might be somewhere like in outtakes. It's certainly not on the wedding brand, but we'll see if we can find any outtakes there.
Okay, that is awesome. We will definitely have you back, but I have a special code for those who go to the singleparentsummit.com. It's the singleparentsummit.com, not to be confused with any other singleparentsummit.com, the singleparentsummit.com. And if you enter Marc into it, we're going to take $5 off. We're going to take a couple bucks off, make it even easier for you to access the site. What are we going to get when we go into it?
Well, so there's actually 3 different options when you go into the Single Parent Summit. The first is if you're going to register for yourself. The second is if you're going to gift the registration for someone else, which I'm so excited about this. And it's been really, really fun to watch that happen. And then the third is if you want to contribute to our Pay It Forward scholarship. And I am so blessed. We've had such a great group of people wanting to be a part of that. So the code is good for which combination you want to do. And we have, we just started it officially today. We have over 30 speakers. And the idea is that the content will come out, one thing a day, basically, 6 or 7 different segments being released each day until July 22nd. However, your registration gives you unlimited replay. I think of it kind of like all you can watch as opposed to all you can eat. All you can watch up until midnight Eastern, August 1st. So, hello, we are talking to single parents. We're just a little bit busy. So a lot of times what happens in summits is that you want the information. It's really good content, but there is no way you're ever going to get through that. Well, that's by design. The reason is because then people want you to buy access later. So instead, we're just like, hold on, there's got to be a way to do this. First of all, to make it super affordable and accessible for our community. But then secondly, do not skip on the content. Don't skimp on the quality of people that are coming in. So let's instead extend a longer access period. So that's how we got to be what it is now. I don't know anyone else is doing it quite like it. So it's a little bit confusing, but nevertheless, there you go.
I absolutely love it. We are live. I think, is our interview the first interview that's up?
It might be.
Okay.
It might be.
Okay. All I can say is that
I don't want to miss anybody, but you are definitely live today. I can tell you that much.
Okay, because there are things that I don't say on the Golden Mic that Tonia got out of me, and I'm quite proud of them. I'm quite proud to be a dad. I'm quite proud of that aspect of my life, and to be able to share that with you and hopefully get folks to tell their stories it's been a complete honor. And however I can continue to support, please do. If Tonia's kid stepmom is sending this out and sharing this out, all of us can share this out. So make sure that you share this out. It's kicking off today. The speakers are absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't seen the preview page,
really amazing people.
It's phenomenal. I feel so honored to be a part of this group. Now here's the thing. I've heard enough of you, Tonia. I've heard enough. So everyone needs to go to the singleparentsummit.com, promo Marc. That's with a C, MARC. I want you to like Tonia. I want you to love Tonia. I want you to want some more of Tonia by sharing this out. Um, engage in communities that weren't here 10 years ago, because 10 years from now, even newer, more forward thinking communities are going to exist. That is a part of the legacy that Tonia has started. Now here's my legacy, Tonia. It's
Let's hear
called
it.
the Golden Mic. On behalf of everybody, thank you for doing everything that you do. Thank you for taking those 3 minutes out in New York to talk to me. I was really wanting a conversation with people that had no voice, and thank you for that 3 minutes. It meant everything. But now for you, there's a golden mic that's coming down from your ceiling, and it's stopping in front of you, Tonia. And for 2 minutes or less, this golden mic translates into every language all across the world. So, Tonia, your golden mic is live.
You are so much more than you think you are when you feel alone. There is so much within you, within your power, the good that you can do in the world. Something as simple as meeting someone eye to eye and giving them a true, honest smile. There is so much in you that is being called forth to make a difference with who you are, how you show up in the world, who you engage with, and what you do. Don't waste a moment of it. And that's not to say that you need to run yourself into the ground to make this happen. It's about you and it's not about you all at the same time. So you got to find that balance. You got to be able to connect to yourself, to really know who you are, invest the time and energy and sometimes even money into self-awareness and self-development, because you've already got it all right inside of you, and we need it. We need you to be who you are, no holds barred, not fitting into anyone else's mold. We need you. Your kids need you. Your community needs you. And we're waiting. And we're here. We're here to cheer you on, and we're here to back you up. And we can't wait for you to be who you are right here, right now.
Tonia Adleta, hold that hand out right there. Give me a fist bump. Now drop that golden mic like it's hot, Tonia! Boom! Just like Eminem would do. You got to own it. You got to own it. You own it. You own it. Adleta, episode 62 of the Golden Mic Live. It's over. It's over. We've heard enough. Get back to your summit. It's posted up. Share this out. My name is Marc Cordon. This is Tonia Adleta. I got one last question for everybody who's watching. If you're feeling great and you're living your life in full purpose, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? We are out. Take care.
Love it.